morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor and here are the latest headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi releases country's first national disaster management plan. Plan based on UN's Sendai framework spells out role of government even at grassroots. Enforcement Directorate notice to arms dealer Sanjay Bhandari over probe into his financial dealings. Income Tax Department seeks information about his properties purchased outside India. Finance Minister meets global investors in Japan, promises advantageous tax regime in India, appeals to countries to cooperate to nab people who escape after breaking law. 15 people, including 2 parliamentarians, killed in a suicide bomb attack at a hotel in Mogadishu. All Al-Shabaab militants claim responsibility. And defending champions Stan Wawrinka and Andy Murray qualify for the men's semi-finals. Gabriel Muguruza sets up semi-final clash with Stam Stosur. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has released the country's first National Disaster Management Plan. Now, the National Disaster Management Plan aims to make India disaster resilient and significantly reduce the loss of lives and assets. The plan is based on the 4 priority themes of the UN's Sendai framework. Now, NDMP covers all phases of disaster management, which include prevention, mitigation, response, as well as recovery. The plan also spells out the roles and responsibilities of all levels of government right down to the panchayat and urban local body levels. The plan has a regional approach which will be beneficial not only for the disaster management but also for development planning. In good news for farmers, the centre government has increased the minimum support price of paddy for the 2016-17 Kharif season. In a decision expected to boost output and also check price rise, MSP for the pulses has also been increased by up to 425 rupees per quintal for this year.
The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved a bonus of 425 rupees for pulses and 100 to 200 rupees per quintal for oilseed growers over and above the MSP. The decision is to encourage domestic production and check prices. MSP for paddy has also been increased by 60 rupees to 1,470 rupees per quintal for the 2016-17 Kharif season.
समर्थन मूल्य बढ़ाने के बाद भी जो दलहन है उस पर 425 रुपये का बोनस और तिलहन पर 100 रुपये का बोनस और तिल पर 200 रुपये का बोनस देने का निश्चय किया गया है और इस तरह से अरहर के दाल में जो वृद्धि समर्थन मूल्य में हुई है वो 9.2%, मूंग में 7.7%, उड़द में 8.1%.
The cabinet has also given its approval to the postal payment banks. The government will set up 650 postal bank branches by September 2017.
To just announce that by September 2017, all the 650 branches of the postal payment bank will become operational. ये हम आपसे कहना चाहते हैं। ये कि बहुत ही बड़ा फैसला है और इसके शुरू होने के बाद हमारा postal payment bank will become the largest network of banks in the world.
The cabinet also gave its nod to the Mau-Tarighat new railway line project and gave ex facto approval to the proposal for Chennai Metro Phase 1 of 9 kilometers. Vishal Daya's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the centre has promulgated for the 3rd time an ordinance to amend a nearly 50-year-old law to guard against the claims of succession or transfer of properties left by people who migrated to Pakistan and China after the wars. Called the enemy property, it refers to any property belonging to, held or managed on behalf of an enemy subject or an enemy firm. The government has vested these properties in the custodian of Enemy Property for India, an office instituted under the central government. The Enemy Property Act was enacted in 1968 after the Indo-Pakistan War in 1965. The Act regulates such properties and lists the custodian's powers. Now, President Pranab Mukherjee has approved the Enemy Property Amendment and Validation Third Ordinance 2016 for the third time, which will replace the second ordinance pending in Rajya Sabha. And in other news, the Enforcement Directorate has served a notice to arms dealer Sanjay Bhandari in connection with the probe into its financial dealings. The Enforcement Directorate has sought bank accounts and details of his properties. The move comes even as the income tax has sought information from some countries about the properties purchased by him. Reports say one of the properties is said to have been owned and later sold by Robert Vadra in London, allegedly facilitated by Bhandari. Bhandari is also likely to face a case under the Officials Secrets Act, as the Income Tax Department had allegedly recovered minutes of the meeting of a defence acquisition from his residence during raids in the last week of April this year. Now, the Enforcement Directorate may also file a case under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act once the Defence Ministry gives its opinion about the classification of defence documents is recovered and a case under OSA is registered against him. Income tax returns of Bhandari and his set of companies besides Vadra's companies are being examined afresh by the tax sleuths before raising a tax demand on him. The IT department has approached authorities in various countries about purchase of property and subsequent sell-off, as they believe that it was purchased from the kickback received by him for over 2,800 crore rupees. Pilatus trader jet deal for the Indian Air Force clinched in 2012. In a related development, the probe is said to have found that Bhandari was constantly in touch with Civil Aviation Minister M. Gajapati Raju's officer on special duty, a charge denied by him. And Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar will travel to Singapore to take part in the crucial Intergovernmental Security Forum, Shangri-La Dialogue. On the sidelines, he will also hold talks with his French counterpart, where both countries are looking at closing the deal for 36 Rafale fighter jets. The deal was announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in April last year, when he had said that the jets would be purchased in a government-to-government contract. Now, Parrikar is expected to strongly put forward India's viewpoint on Asia's complex security challenges, how to manage military competition in the region, and to make a defence policy in uncertain times. The Shangri-La Dialogue, hosted annually by independent think tank International Institute of Strategic Studies, is being held from 3rd to 5th of June. It is attended by defence ministers and military chiefs of 28 Asia-Pacific countries. Moving on now, weeks after the UK declined to deport embattled businessman Vijay Mallya, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said that countries must cooperate when people flee after breaking law. Arun Jaitley, while attending an event at the India Club in Osaka, said, and I quote him now, "We do believe that in such cases where people break the law and escape into other jurisdictions, countries must cooperate with each other in checking such evasion. Banks are taking very tough position in order to recover their assets, and investigative agencies whenever there is a breach of law. We are trying to take cooperation from the British." Jaitley is on a 6-day investor wooing trip to Japan. He also added that the system was not helpless while responding to a question from an audience. Britain last month told India that it cannot deport Mallya, who had flown to London on the 2nd of March, just days before a consortium of lenders approached the Supreme Court to recover more than 9,000 crore rupees loan and interest, but failed to consider an extradition request. The Enforcement Directorate has registered a money laundering case against him and others based on an FIR registered last year by the CBI. Now, pitching for investment in India's first sovereign wealth fund, NIIF, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley met global investors and promised them an advantageous tax regime in the country. The 40,000 crore rupee National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, or the NIIF, was set up in December last year and is an investment vehicle for funding commercially viable greenfield, brownfield and stall projects. While meeting global investors, Finance Minister highlighted the second-generation reform measures undertaken by the government by way of opening up various sectors to FDI, as well as making India an investor-friendly environment. He also urged the Japanese companies having huge expertise in technology to be an active partner in India's growth story. He urged the Japanese investors to make use of the NIIF, which is a flexible way of investing in India's infrastructure development. The government is in the process of appointing a CEO for the NIIF, in which 49% is held by the government and remaining would be held by private investors. The Home Ministry has suspended the license of an NGO run by noted lawyer Indra Jaisingh Lawyers Collective for 6 months. The suspension is for alleged violation of Foreign Contribution Regulations Act or the FCRA guidelines by using the funds for rallies, dharna with political hue and colour. Now, Jaisingh has denied the charge and has termed it an act of vindictiveness. The Home Ministry has asked the NGO to submit its reply within 30 days for violation of various provisions of the Act, after which its registration may even be cancelled. In the notice sent by Union Home Ministry, it said that Lawyers Collective has allegedly received foreign funds between 2006-2007 and 2013-14, and it alleged that discrepancies were found in the filing of annual returns of the NGO, where Jaisingh, who had served as an additional Solicitor General in the UPA government, was functioning as a secretary. The NGO has claimed that the action against it is because its trustees Indira Jaisingh and Anand Grover are involved in cases involving that of Sanjeev Bhatt, Yakub Memon and Priya Pillai. On to other news now. In the nomination papers of all key candidates for the 11th of June Rajya Sabha biennial elections across the 15 states have been found to be valid after scrutiny. The stage is now set for a contest in Uttar Pradesh and in Haryana. A battle in UP is inevitable unless two candidates, including independent Preeti Mahapatra, withdraw their nominations by 3rd of June. 7 candidates of SP and 2 of BSP, senior Congress leader Kapil Sibal and BJP's Shiv Pratap Shukla are the others who are in the fray. In Maharashtra, now papers of all the 6 candidates, including Chidambaram and Piyush Goyal, were found valid. They are set to be elected unopposed. The others are Praful Patel of the NCP, BJP's Vinay Sehers Budhe and Vikas Mahate, and Shiv Sena's Sanjay Raut. In Tamil Nadu, nomination papers of 7 independents and of 1 independent in Karnataka were rejected during scrutiny. Now, this paves the way for election of 6 nominees, 4 from the AIADMK and 2 from the DMK unopposed. Congress party will have no representation in the upper house from the state. Meanwhile, in Karnataka, an independent candidate's nomination was rejected, but the papers of the 3 Congress candidates and BJP's Nirmala Sitharaman were found to be valid. Well, Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari has batted for unity among all religions, saying that it is the essential reality of a plural society. Speaking at a Moroccan university on Wednesday, the Vice President said that religious unity was the basis on which a democratic and a secular state structure would properly function. Delivering a lecture at the Muhammad V University in the capital Rabat, Vice President Ansari also spoke about India's deep-rooted association with Islam and said that the objective of the country's constitution was to protect the right of religious minorities. The Moroccan University also conferred an honorary degree on the Vice President. Later in the day on Wednesday, Vice President Ansari left for Morocco's imperial city and popular tourist destination Marrakech. He was received at the airport by Governor. He will be leaving for Tunisia today.
The one incontrovertible fact about the Muslim experience in modern India is that its citizens professing the Islamic faith are citizens, consider themselves as such, are beneficiaries of the rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution, participate fully in the civic processes of the polity, and seek correctives for their grievances within the system. There is no inclination in their ranks to resort to ideologies and practices of violence.
Well, in Breakfast News, time for a short news break. We'll be right back.
Tales that inspire. stories of social change. A salute to diversity, promoting public discourse. Events that motivate, inspiring the innovative spirit. Watch Rajya Sabha television documentaries Mondays, Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 10:30 p.m.
Welcome back. Now, the All India Jat Reservation Struggle Association on Wednesday moved the Supreme Court, challenging the interim stay on the Jat reservation law by the Punjab and Haryana High Court. In its petition, the association sought reservation benefits under a proposed legislation of the state. The BJP-led government in the state had hurriedly announced quota benefits for the Jat community in the month of March. This after the influential committee members went on a rampage in February this year, causing widespread damage to property. The violence forced the state government to amend the Haryana backward classes, making them eligible for the 10% reservation in educational institutions and in class 3 and 4 posts and 6% in class 1 and 2 posts. The case is likely to come up for hearing in the next week.
आज इसीलिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट में आवेदन किया कि जब तक अंतिम निर्णय कोर्ट का नहीं आ जाता तब तक जो आवेदन करते हैं उनको विधेयक के अनुसार आरक्षण का लाभ मिले और उसमें वो अप्लाई कर सकें, चाहे कॉलेज के एडमिशन में या हायर एजुकेशन में या किसी प्रोफेशनल कोर्स में एडमिशन के लिए अप्लाई कर सकें, साथ में जो नौकरियां हरियाणा सरकार निकाल रही है अभी उसमें भी आवेदन कर सकें.
Now, Pakistan President Mahmood Hussain has alleged that India is displaying a running away behavior when it comes to solving the Pathankot issue. The Pakistani president was addressing a joint session of the parliament at the beginning of the 4th year of the present government. Hussain also brought up the Kashmir issue, an unfinished agenda of partition and cause of regional tension unless settles as per the wishes of the Kashmiris and UN resolutions. Now, Foreign Secretary-level talks between India and Pakistan scheduled for January this year was stalled following the attack on the Pathankot air base. Now, new dates for the talks have still to be set up. Now, congratulating the lawmakers on completion of 3 years of parliament, he said that Pakistan was making progress in the economic field. He also said that partnership with China was important for Pakistan's national economic growth and the multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan economic corridor would be completed at every cost.
पाकिस्तान की तरफ से मुज़ाकरात की ज़रूरत पर बार बार जोर देने और पठानकोट वाक़े की मजम्मत और मुश्तरका तहक़ीक़ात की पेशकश के बावजूद ख़ारजा सेक्रेटरी की सतह पर मुज़ाकरात इल्तवा का शिकार हैं, जिस पर हमें तशवीश है. इस तरह के हालात नेकनियती और अखलास के उसी जज्बे के रूब अमल आने से बेहतर हो सकते हैं जिस पर पाकिस्तान कारबंद है.
And in the big international story, well, a suicide car bomber has crashed his vehicle into a gate outside a hotel in Somali capital, and the attack was followed by gunfire, killing at least 15 people, including 2 members of parliament. Al-Shabaab fighters claimed responsibility for Wednesday's attack, targeting Mogadishu's Ambassador Hotel, which is frequented by diplomats, government officials and Somalis visiting from abroad. The lengthy siege at the hotel ended early Thursday. The 2 politicians killed in the attack were identified by police as Mahmood Mohammed and also Abdullahi Jamak. Both the victims lived in the hotel. At least 20 other people were also wounded. The attack happened shortly before the arrival of Turkish President Erdogan in Mogadishu. Al-Shabaab, which seeks to topple Somalia's government, was driven out of the capital by the African Union force in 2011 and last year was ousted from strongholds elsewhere in the south by the National Army. Well, energy ministers from the oil exporters group or the OPEC will gather in Vienna today for a discussion on oil prices. The current oil price is well up from the lows that it had hit in January of about $27 a barrel, but close to at $50 a barrel now. It is still low enough for to be a problem for the OPEC members. However, there is a little chance of a decisive action at this OPEC meeting. This is because Saudi Arabia is showing no signs of abandoning its 2-year-old refusal to respond to an overabundance of oil by unilaterally cutting production. And also, Iran remains insistent that it won't participate in any freeze in the OPEC production to bolster prices until its own output recovers from the now lifted sanctions by the United States and other countries. Currently, the group doesn't have a formal production ceiling to cut. Well, after touching a 13-year low earlier this year, the price of oil has moved up steadily to a present level of around $50 a barrel. However, the wildfires in Canada's oil-producing regions, militant attacks in Nigeria on the industry, and the persistent turmoil in Libya have made their mark on the global oil market. Now, a media report coming from Beijing says that China is set to declare an air defense identification zone over the disputed South China Sea. Well, this is to counter what it says is U.S. military's provocative moves in the strategic waterways. The report quotes Chinese officials as saying that the timing of the declaration of ADIZ would depend on security conditions in the region, particularly the U.S.'s military presence and diplomatic ties with the neighboring countries. The development comes 2 years after China announced an ADIZ in the East China Sea. ADIZ requires all incoming aircraft, including civilian planes, to register with the Chinese authority to fly in the air routes. The report comes ahead of the next week's U.S.-China Annual Strategic and Economic Dialogue in Beijing on 6th and 7th June, in which U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry would take part. China, which has built airfields and placed weapons system on the man-made islands in the sea, claims almost all of the South China Sea. Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei and Taiwan have rival claims. It is a major global shipping route believed to have large oil and gas reserves and through which about $5 trillion in trade passes each year. The U.S. has been wading into the dispute to assert the freedom of navigation in the disputed region. News from the U.S. and 2 men are dead, including a gunman following a shooting at the University of California in Los Angeles. Now, the 2 dead were found inside a small office in an engineering building with gun recovered from the scene. Now, neither person has been identified and it is not clear if the dead were students. Reports of several shots fired at the city campus coming in at about 10 a.m. local time on Wednesday, and authorities quickly locked down the campus of 43,000 students. Police urged people to stay away, forcing hundreds of terrified students to hide in buildings. Now, investigators do not believe that there was any outstanding suspects. The university classes are expected to resume from today, except for the engineering school where the deaths occurred.
So we just were working just like any ordinary day, and then we got an alert. We have a Bruin alert that comes in, and it let us know that there was a shooter on site and to go on to complete lockdown. We've had some training on this, so we immediately locked all our doors, stayed away from the doors, and just awaited for instruction.
2 adult male victims who are dead from apparent gunshot wounds. This may be what appears to be what's commonly referred to as a murder-suicide. And at this point, our robbery homicide investigators will be taking over the investigation to try to determine what happened and what caused this event.
And French investigators have said that a signal has been detected from one of the 2 black boxes of the Egypt airplane which crashed last month in the Mediterranean, killing all 66 people on board. French vessel La Place, which is participating in the search for the plane, has picked up signals coming from the deep in the sea and believed to be one of the black boxes of the plane. Now, an intensive search is currently underway to locate the precise position of these black boxes, which are believed to be at the depth of about 9,842 feet underwater. Now, a second ship will join the search team later this week. The Airbus A320's black box recorders could be critical in identifying the cause of the disaster. Egypt Air flight MS-804 disappeared from radar screens in the early hours of 19th of May before it crashed into the Mediterranean Sea with all 66 passengers and crew on board presumed dead. Some body parts and small pieces of debris have been recovered. On to sporting action now. Well, after 2 days of rain, Roland Garros finally got an entire day's play. Now, this helped reduce the backlog of matches with the 2 semi-finals known in the men's singles. Now defending champion Stan Wawrinka versus Andy Murray, while top half will be involved in matches again tomorrow. On the women's side, Gabriel Muguruza set up semi-final clash with Stan Stosur, even as Serena Williams wasted little time to reach quarters. For Indians, it was a rather dull day, with only Sania Mirza registering a win, while Leander Paes and Rohan Bopanna lost. Wasting no time at all after waiting hours to play due to incessant rain, Andy Murray eventually found his form to get the better of home favourite Richard Gasquet and reach the semi-finals of the French Open on Wednesday. The world number 2 looked in real trouble at a set and 3-1 down in the second set tie-break, but won 6 straight points and from there raced to a 5-7, 7-6, 6-0, 6-2 victory to set up a clash with defending champion Stan Wawrinka. Third seed Stan Wawrinka remains on course to defend his French Open title after the Swiss beat Spain's Albert Ramos Vinolas in straight sets in the quarterfinals. The 31-year-old became the oldest man since 1985 to reach the semi-finals with a 6-2, 6-1, 7-6 win over the Spaniard. The Swiss will face world number 2 Andy Murray in the last 4 on Friday. Top seed Novak Djokovic got just what he wanted as he pursues a first French Open title, wrapping up a rain-interrupted victory with minimum trouble to get to the quarterfinals. Aiming to win a 4th consecutive major trophy and complete a career Grand Slam, the number 1 seeded Djokovic needed only 71 minutes to finish off a 3-6, 6-4, 6-1, 7-5 win against number 14 Roberto Bautista Agut of Spain. The match was suspended because of rain on Tuesday, with Djokovic leading 4-1 in the third set. In the women's draw, Serena Williams moved closer to her record-equalling 22nd Grand Slam title by easily reaching the French Open quarterfinals. Top-seeded Williams dominated from start to finish during a 6-1, 6-1 victory over 18th-seed Elena Svitolina of Ukraine in only 62 minutes. In another match, Spanish 4th seed Gabriel Muguruza reached her first French Open semi-final on Wednesday with a 7-5, 6-3 win over Shelby Rogers of the United States. Muguruza had reached the quarterfinals on her last 2 visits to Paris and was Wimbledon runner-up in 2015. In a rather dull day for India, Sania Mirza's entry into the mixed doubles quarterfinals was the only silver lining, as both Leander Paes and Rohan Bopanna lost their respective last 8 encounters in the men's doubles at the French Open. Second-seeded Sania and her Croatian partner Ivan Dodig beat French pair of Elise Cornet and Jonathan Eseric 6-7, 6-4, 10-8 in a closely fought second-round match. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. That's all in this edition of News. Bye-bye.